So it is with pleasure that I introduce Christian. So I met Christian just recently because initially I was working with Geneva from Ngati Tamaoho, and she is the CEO there. And initially when we were talking about a CHP application, it was going to be just for Ngati Tamaoho. They have some amazing aspirations and some great opportunities in Auckland on how they can develop and provide housing to their members. And then as we progressed on and we'd got somewhat down the pathway of the application, an opportunity came their way to partner with Ngāti Hāua and to amplify the reach that they have for their members individually, but also together. So you can hear that it would be across Waikato and also Auckland. And so Te Rau o Te Korimako was born, and Christian was able to join us. And it was great when you joined us, Christian, because you would have seen, obviously, you know, Ngāti Tamaoho had an idea on when they wanted to submit their application, and then adding a new partnership and a new entity into the mix obviously brought a different dynamic. And it was great when you did join, you can really jumped in there and helped out to get those templates done and to get that application finished. So really pleased to hand the rākau over to you and for you to share the journey of Te Rau o Te Korimako. Kia ora.
Kia ora, Jen. Thank you very much. Kia ora koutou. As I said, I work with Te Waharoa Investments, which is our executive arm, our investments arm of the Ngāti Hāua Iwi Trust. And it's been a real privilege to join with Ngāti Tamaoho and to see what we can do together, to see what we can do with our whānau together. We believe strongly that housing is a right. And as the slides, I think the slides are about to come up soon. Yes, oh, thank you very much. That there's so much we can do together. I think a real basic whakatauki, but one that really applies. We have no te roro, nāku te roro, ka ora ai te iwi, and we really believe that with our basket, with the basket of Tamaoho, we can really see our whānau thrive. There's so much wisdom and knowledge and resources to gain from that. So here we are. We're Te Rau o Te Korimako, so Ngāti Hāua and Ngāti Tamaoho. And so Te Rau o Te Korimako is a joint venture between us two. It's a limited partnership, which I'll talk a bit more about on the next slide. But our aim is to provide housing solutions for whānau and for the communities within our rohe. And so the name was gifted by Ngāti Hāua, by one of our kaumātua, and it means te rau, meaning the covering or the clothing, or te korimako, of the bellbird. And so in Te Ao Māori, we know that we highly esteem our manu, our birds, a really important part of our culture. And for the bellbird, which represents, not only literally makes a beautiful sound, but represents someone thriving and a thriving people. This was used as a reference to sustenance and shelter of our whānau. If we can come under our whānau, if we can support them, if we can cover them and clothe them, then we can hopefully help them to thrive, to be like the bellbird. Oh, yes, sorry. I should have said this at the start. So I work with, get to work with Geneva Harrison from Ngāti Tamaoho. Unfortunately, as many of us have been, she's out with COVID, and so hoping she gets well soon. But she will be here for the end for Q&A through the chat, if there are any questions that she can answer for you that I may not have. Yes, and so the name was gifted by Ngāti Hāua, and our beautiful tohu here, our logo, was gifted by Ngāti Tamaoho. And so the image includes within the feather, within te rau, the korimako, and then our tukutuku refers to our housing of the korimako. So it's a really beautiful way to symbolize what we're all about and what we're aiming and setting out to achieve. And so Te Rawati Korimako is a limited liability company, as I said. And so we have co-ownership with Ngāti Hāua and Ngati Tamaoho. So 50-50 ownership between our two iwi, and looking forward to what's to come. So just a little bit about who we are as iwi. And so we both connect back to Waikato Tainui or to Tainui. And so for Ngati Tamaoho, they've been around and established for a while as a trust. And so as you can see there, they've been established for 30+ years. And so they settled, they had their treaty settlement in 2018, so not too long ago. And they've got their office base in Karaka, and out south a bit, and that's central to their three of their marae, Mangatangi, Whatapaka, and Ngā Hauē Whā. Their main primary activities are Crown relations, Te Taea, looking after our environment, wakahuia, orangahau, and whenua developments. And the whenua developments is particularly exciting for Te Rawati Korimako, and what that could mean for the future of providing community housing to our whānau. For Ngāti Tamaoho, 60% of their iwi live in Tāmaki, and the primary areas are out south. So Manurewa, Papukura, and Pukekohe. And unfortunately, only 18% of iwi are homeowners. And despite that, the iwi rohe has the fastest growing housing developments in Auckland. We look to Drury and Karaka, where there's huge developments going up of hundreds, thousands of houses. And the sad reality is that on their own lands, iwi members are unable to own homes in their rohe, and there are current insecure housing arrangements. And so that's where we hope to come in to support our whānau. And so for Ngāti Hāua, it's a similar but different story. We settled in 2013, and while we had a tribal trust before then, we established our post-settlement iwi trust then. Our office base is in Morrinsville in the Waikato. I would hope that lots of people know where Morrinsville is, but if you don't, it's about 20 minutes east of Hamilton or Kirikiriroa. And so our rohe stretches out from the east side of Kirikiriroa out to Waharoa, Matamata, and Morrinsville. And so that base in Morrinsville is central to our whānau and our 5 Hāua marae. And so our current activities are the tumuaki-tanga. So Ngāti Hāua is quite involved with the kingi-tanga, with our place as the tumuaki-tanga and with our tumuaki, and also Crown relations. And as I mentioned earlier, I work with Te Waharoa Investments, and so that's our executive and investing arm. And so that's another place where we're looking forward to investing in housing solutions for our whānau and then offering those through Te Rawati Korimako. So really exciting for the future. And then there's other social engagement and community developments and our reo and cultural revitalisation, along with our other trusts, our Mahi Trust, our High Water Trust. And so for us, 50% of our iwi live in the Waikato, primarily in Kirikiriroa in Hamilton, and then in the Matamata Piako districts and Taupare, Morrinsville, Waharoa, and Matamata. And then this is an exciting part of working together. 17.5% of our whānau also live here in Tāmaki. And I'm sure that many of the Tamaoho whānau also live further south into the Waikato, and it's exciting that we get to support each other in this process and what the future holds. And so for our iwi, 23.4% are homeowners, and it is sad to see so little of our whānau owning homes and having secure housing on their own land, but we hope to in many different ways, including through becoming a CHP, provide housing for our whānau. An example there is that in the Matamata Piako district, house prices have risen by over 80% in the last 5 years. So in Morrinsville, which is a hub for our whānau, a rural hub nonetheless, I think 5 years ago, a house was about 450,000 and now it's just shy of 800. And that's really hard for our whānau, especially when their income hasn't risen too much. And so it's definitely a need for us to provide secure housing. and it's exciting that we get to work together. And so I also did just want to mention that we are both, I mentioned briefly earlier, but we are both from Tainui. And while Waikato Tainui and Tainui work together as one big group for many things, we get to work as individual iwi and hapu for other things. And so with that comes shared whakapapa and shared vision for our people. And one example of us already working together is in the earlier COVID-19 lockdowns, we got to work together to provide food solutions for our whānau and tāmaki. And so it's not completely new for us to be working together, but it's exciting to be working together in this way. And I've also got just on the previous slide, I've also got a note from Geneva here is that we understood that separation as Te Rawati Korimako, not just a joint venture, but as a limited partnership. It was important to provide a separation of services for our whānau. It was important to know that they didn't have to accept our help, but that we were there to offer it. And so as organisations, we don't already offer housing services, but we do have many of our whānau involved in that sector, or used to be involved in that sector, who we're looking forward to working with to make this all work. So our journey to the CHP application. So in 2016, Ngāti Tamaoho made the initial investigation pre-treaty settlement to what it would look like to offer housing solutions in the form of a CHP for their whānau. But in 2018, as we said, they settled their treaty settlement, which is a very time-consuming and busy task. So it was shelved and it was put aside for then. But then in 2021, the plans were revived, and we were privileged enough, Tamaoho at that time, not yet Te Rawati Korimako, was to make the connection to Te Matapihi and to begin the process of working on an application with the support of Te Matapihi, the support of Auckland Council. And at that same time, Ngāti Hāua in Waharoa in the Waikato area were also looking at how we could provide housing solutions for our whānau, healthy, safe, dry, warm homes. And as we were already working with Tamaoho, we thought, wow, we could work together on this too. So towards the end of 2021 and the beginning of 2022, we pivoted our approach to being initially a joint venture, now a limited partnership, instead of separate applications. As I mentioned right at the start, we can do so much more together. And I think we've had many conversations about, wow, we don't only have to work with the Crown, we don't only have to work with other Pākehā organisations, but we can work together as Māori, as iwi, to support our people, which is quite exciting. And so we had a few reasons for working together. As you can see on the slide, our vision was the same. We wanted our whānau to thrive in secure housing. Our socioeconomic challenges, while different, Ngāti Hāua, the landscape looks very different in majority rural housing in rural areas with small townships to the relatively urban Tamaoho landscape. But we still face the same challenges. House prices are rising. For our whānau, income isn't rising too much. There's overcrowding and homes aren't to a good standard. So we had that same vision to see how could we improve this for our whānau. And so culturally, as I've already mentioned, we do come from the same ancestors. We are whānau, if you go back far enough, in the Tainui waka. And with that comes shared values, shared aspiration for iwi growth, to see each other grow, to see our whānau thrive, and to see the prosperity, of our ancestors and our descendants and our mokopuna, and even now. And so financially, with the shared networks, it was practical. With the shared networks that we hold as Ngāti Hāua, with the shared networks that we hold as Ngāti Tamaoho, the shared expertise of our trustees and our board members, and that initial establishment investment was really a really important way of sharing the risk. And so the CHP is for both of us part of larger plans to offer housing. One really cool note that I've got written down here is that we're not, oh pardon me, sorry, we are mana whenua, and we're not going anywhere. And so what does it look like to have long-term plans? And so this is a part of a long-term plan for both of our iwi. And as we come in with not a lot currently when it comes to housing, we were able to share that risk. Eventually, our long-term goal is to be established and registered as a community housing provider, but then also eventually to have PHO status and to offer housing solutions that enable us to have progressive home ownership. Because we know there's a continuum of housing need. It's not just affordable rentals, but we want to see our whānau in homes one day that they can own, that they can call their own, that they can have even more security in and raise their mokopuna and their children, a place that they can care for. And so yeah, that's our long-term plan, and to see that happen. But with the CHP, it's exciting that we're getting a start to providing that for our whānau. So that's our journey. That's how we got to 2022. Briefly, this is our organizational structure. And so for Te Reo Te Korimako, as we are a limited partnership, we have chosen to set up a new entity for the reasons explained before, that it minimizes the risk, it helps us to work together better, and it's better for our whānau. But as this new entity, 50-50 owned, we then have a representative from both iwi who are voted by their boards onto the board for the governance structure for Te Reo Te Korimako. So from Ngāti Hāua, we have Rukumoana Schaffhausen, and so she is the managing director for our executive arm, Te Waharoa Investments, and for Ngati Tamaoho, there's Rachel Petero, who's the Ngati Tamaoho director. And so this ensures that we have reporting back both to both of our iwi, ensures that we have accountability from both of our iwi, and also, while being that limited partnership, it's also ensures a degree of separation from our parent entities. And so while we have the two iwi directors, we also have an independent director there, and that's Andrew Williams from Alvarian. Andrew brings a real wealth of knowledge. So Alvarian is the largest provider of social housing in the United Kingdom. And so they bring a whole lot of knowledge, wisdom, and expertise, not only in social housing, but in the property market, and property and housing in general. And so it's been a real privilege to have their insight and guidance in this, and especially moving forward, what that will look like. I'll jump to the next slide, if that's all right. So for our application, what were our learnings? And I guess these are the big takeaways. We took approximately 3 months to complete the application. Lots of the work was done by Geneva. And yeah, right here, I'd like to thank Geneva as well for all the hard mahi that she put in. There were many a late night putting in the work, but these are the learnings that were taken to hopefully make it easier. And so there were a few stop-starts, but here we are. So our learnings are mainly, don't overthink the application. That was a real big thing in our meetings, in our weekly Zoom meetings with Jen. We would say, oh, how can we go above and beyond? And that was our logical thinking. How can we go above and beyond in this application to make ourselves look a whole lot better to the regulatory authority, and to make our application go, pass with flying colors. And I think that was the wrong thinking. We eventually learned, don't overthink the application, stick to exactly what is requested. Don't do any more, don't do any less. And if they need it, they will come back to us with a request for additional information. And while we can prepare that information in case they ask for it, just stick to, don't overthink it. And I think we eventually learned that when you overthink it, the task becomes a lot more daunting. And so in saying that, we know that there are lots of files. And so we used a file sharing setup. We used Dropbox. That made it easier to review and edit, to leave comments, especially across the operations and governance documents, and then also across the manuals from Te Matapihi. I could not imagine searching through strings of emails for documents. So yeah, that file sharing setup really helped us. It was just a Dropbox with different folders, with draft folders and final folders, and also numbering of different documents to make it easier to reference, which will take a bit of initial work, but will save you so much time and stress. And so also determining the structure early. This is a really key one. For us, over that 3 months of completing the application, while we had it all up here, the business plan, the strategy, and the governance organization, lots of that it wasn't fully put into paper until later in our application process. And we would really encourage to our whānau and to everyone who are applying to become a CHP and doing the application to do that early. Lots of the application requires reflection or referencing back to those structures, and it will affect the vital information required for the application that's there as well. So the legal entity, the constitution for us, Te Reo Te Korimako, our board motions and governance profiles, and then throughout the manuals as well, referencing and knowing how we're going to work. Otherwise, as it says in the next bullet point, spend more time up front landing on key issues, those key issues like the structure or other key issues. Like for us, a key issue was in our financial documents, was our loan to value ratio, working that out with our finance teams and with people who oversee that. If you don't work it out, you end up going back through nearly 20 documents and changing them every time you make a decision. And so it makes a lot of sense, but it also saves time to determine the structure early, and to spend more time up front landing on those key issues, on who will oversee what, on finances, on governance. Yeah, and so these last 2 points were, don't compare the process to other sectors, just answer. And I think that's part of why sometimes we tended to overthink the application, especially coming as iwi, and now after a few years in different games and different places in different sectors, it can be easy to think, oh well, this makes sense from a financial point of view, this makes sense from maybe an investments point of view, but don't compare the process to the other sectors. Just answer. Don't overthink the application. As iwi, we do deal with multiple sectors for us, and it was a challenge not to keep comparing them to others and pushing back at what we thought was required. There were many times where we thought, oh well, that doesn't make sense. Surely Jen, we said surely they would want this. Why would they not want this? We would want this. And very thankful for Jen saying no. I can understand where you're coming from, but that's not how it works. So just answer. If they need it, they'll come back again. And finally, this is particularly for us as an iwi as well, but as Māori Ma, drop the ego and follow the process, which can be hard. And it was challenging for us to prepare a proposal for a regulatory authority where no treaty relationship between us and them, or really treaty relationship existed too much. But once we put aside our ego, once we thought of our whānau, we could really benefit from this, and knowing that there will be a future for things like that, regardless, we were able to put our head down and focus on the job ahead, and moved a bit faster. So that was great. So those are some of our key learnings. On the next slide, we had some of our key challenges. Thank you very much. And so, first of all, from MHUD, we note that over 50% of the housing register in Auckland and Tāmaki are Māori, which is really sad. I guess that goes without saying, for lack of better words. And that within the tribal rohe, of Tamaoho alone, Kāinga Ora manages 9,000 properties. A lot of properties, a lot of whānau, a lot of people on our iwi lands, and so our ancestral lands within our rohe. And so we're hopeful, as Te Rawati Korimako, but Ngāti Tamaoho are hopeful that with the right vehicles and mechanisms in place, and the government will to do so, that as mana whenua, they will have a more active role in the management / ownership of housing in their rohe, for Ngāti Tamaoho whānau, but for others in the community. And that's a really exciting prospect, not only for Tamaoho in their tino rangatiratanga over their areas, and what that looks like, but also for Te Rawati Korimako and what that would look like, providing that housing as a community housing provider. And so our challenges were not really having operational experience in community housing provision. As individuals, there was some experience. I guess we're very there was some experience in more private areas, but we didn't really have that operational experience in community housing provision. And so we are looking forward to onboarding whānau who have experience in that sector from our different iwi. That was a big challenge for us. Another big challenge was the current economic environment. As many of us know, and as we mentioned, it's hard to buy homes, buy one home, let alone many to provide for our whānau. So what does it look like to develop and to invest our resources, but at the same time staying accountable to our iwi, reducing risk, and so on and so on. And so another challenge between being a limited partnership, between being two iwi, was our dual reporting requirements and our management of iwi expectations. Touching on that, Ngāti Hāua has expectations to provide housing and provide solutions for whānau in the Waikato, and Tamaoho up here in Tāmaki, and also reporting back to the two boards and to the different governance structures, and getting approval and all to go ahead with Te Rawati Korimako. So that was a challenge. It wasn't one that we couldn't face, but it was definitely one to think about and reporting back to overseeing entities. And so for us, we didn't have the funding or support from MHUD to grow capacity or capability in housing iwi. We are hoping as we move forward to get more support from different arenas and different entities to grow our housing capacity and capability, but that's another challenge that we face looking forward. Not that we won't do it, because we've got a vision and we've got foresight, and we're going to get there for our whānau. But that was another challenge: is how do we move forward with not a lot of funding, which was another benefit there of being two iwi together. We were able to share the risk, especially of that initial investment. And then finally, and that challenge was iwi preparedness, but this can be applied to, I guess, any entity, any roku or group. Iwi preparedness for potential rapid expansion and scale. One challenge that we look forward to, I did mention that it is interesting looking at how and where we're going to build houses, but iwi preparedness for potential rapid expansion and scale. Hopefully in 5 to 10 years, we hope to have a lot more houses than we currently do, provide a lot more homes for our whānau, and that is one challenge that we have faced and that we will be facing and tackling head on. And one to think about is what does it look like to be prepared for potentially going from currently one home to eventually and hopefully many hundred. Yes, so being prepared for rapid expansion and scale. So those are some of the challenges we faced, and lots of them are, lots of them are quite particular to being iwi Māori and to being iwi, but they can definitely something to think about. And when you're going through your application and your process, is onboarding people with experience. We have Andrew Williams, and we're really grateful for his vision and his wisdom and oversight. And looking at our current economic environment, we were able to share the risk between our iwi, and looking at our dual reporting requirements and iwi expectations, we were able to show that it is within our vision. It is within what we want for our whānau, and it is always a great thing to be working together. For funding support, we're able, and we're looking at finding other ways, and then for our iwi preparedness, well, we're going to get there. But that's exciting. And I think on that note, I'd like to give a big mihi to Te Matapihi, to Jen, a big mihi to the Auckland Council for supporting us to form Te Reo Te Korimako and to submit our CHP application on the 8th of April. That was a very exciting day after lots of hard work, especially from Geneva. As I've said, lots of hard work, lots of proofreading, lots of reviewing materials, lots of going back and forth between different boards and ensuring that what we were doing right and we were doing well, and really grateful for Jen's oversight and saying, okay, this looks good. And so on the 8th of April, we submitted that application. So yeah, those are our acknowledgements. Thank you so much. Ngā mihi nui to Te Matapihi, to the Auckland Council. And we're so excited to see where we go. We're on the journey now. We're waiting for our application to process, and it's so exciting. Hopefully we'll see many of you on that other side, and yeah, we'll be working to provide great, safe, warm, dry housing to be te reo or te korimako, to clothe and to cover our bellbirds and help our whānau to thrive. So that's all from me. Thank you so much for hanging in there. I know that was a lot of talking, but I'm really hopeful that from what we learned, we were able to share some of that with you. And yeah, we can take some questions. Unfortunately, I won't be able to answer heaps of the questions. Hopefully I will be able to, but if I can't, then Geneva is in the chat there to answer some of our questions via typing, because COVID has unfortunately taken her voice. So that's me. Thank you, Jen. I'll pass it back to you.
Kia ora, Christian. Thank you so much for your kōrero and for sharing the journey. It was wonderful to hear. So even though we were meeting on such a regular basis, our focus was always on the application. And what you've done there is you've really brought to life and added so much richness about how the two iwi have come together and created Te Reo Te Korimako. And particularly hearing that partnership is all the way along. So even that the gifting of the name and the gifting of the graphics and the design and the sharing of the board members, so all the way through you can absolutely see how this is a partnership. I just wondered if you might be able to give a little bit of insight into what it was like for you, because I know that you did spend a lot of time on those manuals and helping to get those ready. And that's often such a big part that can be quite overwhelming for those that are new to the housing system. And there is a lot to go through, and it isn't just completing one document, but you also need to make sure that you've got a cohesive application to demonstrate that the business is ready. So you can't look at one document in isolation, you actually have to look at them all together. And that's a lot of information to be juggling. And I just wondered if you could give some insight, because you did do a lot of that mahi, into what that was like. Yeah,
sure. I think really grateful for the templates themselves from Te Matapihi. They were, I can't imagine having to have written those up ourselves or gotten those together ourselves. But for the information to be filled in on the manuals, there are quite a few manuals, and it was, I guess, the reality is it is quite an arduous task, looking through them, combing through them, making sure they are cohesive. So the key piece of advice I would give is definitely that sorting that the key points, the key points of tension that we have in different areas. For us, it was that loan to value ratio, and ensuring our governance structure, who was going to do what, who was going to oversee what, especially in the beginning, and then what that looked like further, but also other things as Te Reo Te Korimako, our business plan, our strategic plan, all of those documents. I would say particularly for the manuals, do those earlier, and if you once, not necessarily once those are done, you can work on the manuals regardless, but for us, I think that was our key learning, that lots of that information is really vital to wrapping your head around. Okay, how is Te Reo Te Korimako working? We know exactly how, not exactly, but we know what we're going to do, how we're going to work, and then that makes it so much easier through the manuals to just be like, yep, this is what we're doing, yep, this is what we're doing, yep, this is what we're doing. Yes, so the business plan, strategic plan, those governance documents, they make it a whole lot easier to get through those manuals without just ending up commenting on everything. Come back to it, come back to it, come back to it. Yeah.
That's really good insight. Thank you, Christian. So really setting up that foundation, and that comes from knowing who your directors are and having them to help guide you as well. So now we'd like to open it up. Thank you so much, Christian. We'd like to open it up to everybody. We do have plenty of time for pātai, and I'll just go on mute and give you some time to come on and see if there's anything that you would like to ask of Christian. And then we also have Geneva, who is online, but she's not going to be turning on her camera, but she is available in chat if there is anything that you're also wanting to ask her.
Kia ora, everyone. I just want to say, Christian, that was amazing. Like, it was very, very inspiring. Honestly, I was very inspired to see that mahi is being done, you know, for our people. And I would hope to replicate something that is just as similar to that too. So thank you.
Kia ora. Yeah, it's really exciting. I'm so excited, as you can see, a rangatahi, but what that means for our
I know,
people
so amazing.
Forward.
Like, I'm so proud, just so proud of you. Very, very proud of you.
Thank you very much. I'm so excited for where we're going.
I was going to ask Christian, look, it's exactly the same, really. It's awesome to see rangatahi wanting and having a desire to be involved with whenua matters. My question, I guess, is like, now that you're at this phase, at the stage of the game where it looks like as if, you know, the CHIP registration is likely to just go through without, you know, without too much problems because you've done the application well. Where's the next step? What's the next first step? When are the houses going to, you know, where's the plan at? What's your first development, I guess, or something like that, for want of a better phrase?
I must acknowledge as well, I was mainly in an assisting role, still very privileged to be there, and Geneva led us very well. Geneva's done some amazing work. Looking on that Dropbox, looking at the time some of those documents were submitted, working very hard. For us, Geneva might correct me in the chat if I'm wrong, but moving forward, we had a board meeting as Te Reo Te Korimako before that Thursday meeting, before that Thursday hui where the photo was taken, really looking at what our strategy is moving forward. So we will be expecting to be continually hearing back from the Community Housing Regulatory Authority to see, as our application processes, what they want and what they need. But as as Geneva said, we have one property ready to go, that Tamaoho hold out in Drury, and that's just a standalone house. That'll be great as well for having some experience. But then we're looking at expanding through, for us, a very unique way, with our iwi holding most of the risk, and Te Rawati Korimako mainly managing that. Looking to expand our housing portfolios, hopefully in the southern Tāmaki area in southern Auckland and the rohe of Tamaoho, but also for Ngāti Hāua and Waharoa, and hopefully out towards Matamata and our rohe as well. Our first, that home we will start in July, hopefully, provided our CHP registration is approved, and then we're looking in the next 3 to 5 years to start the process of bigger portfolios, doing lots of mahi in the meantime, and then hopefully in 5 years' time we will have significantly more houses, and then 10 years, 20 years we will be. But yeah, that's what we're doing now. A lot of strategy, that first home, and then what does it look like in the next 5 years. We worked a lot with Jen as well on ensuring that our plan was oh gosh, lost words, but ensuring that our plan was enough, comprehensive enough, that's the word, for the CHRA over the next year's plan. And I think we did a 3-year plan or a 5-year plan, and then what that looks like for Te Rawati Korimako.
Kia ora, that was great insight, and I see that Geneva has been coming in and giving some extra information on there as well. If there are no more questions, just quickly looking around, if anyone wants to quickly pop in, put your hand up. But I think that brings to a close the kōrero and the sharing of Christian for Te Rawati Korimako. And thank you again, Christian, you really did that so well. I know that you weren't planning to present to us today, and you just stepped in and brought so much life to the journey, and it was really wonderful. So thank you so much for doing that. Be well, Geneva. I hope that you recover well. Our thoughts are with you. We know what it's like. A lot of us have had COVID. And so we understand that you need to take the time to rest and recover. But thank you for coming on today and supporting us.